Went to the doctors.
Folks, we have a very special guest for you tonight.
Hello, we've been expecting you.
This is not a test. Your government and corporate overlords have implemented new measures for your own health and safety. We are just following orders.
Everything is going to be fine.
I'd like to introduce...
Ta-da! They worked. Hey, welcome to If by Whiskey. Mark is with us in spirit tonight. He's traveling, so he's not here. But I've got two of some of the most heavy hitters in the purveyors of liberty and stewards of the cause. I wanted to welcome Brent Freeman and Rob Yates tonight to the show. Thanks for coming, guys.
How's it going?
It's going. I know we've all been doing all kinds of different things. I know, Brent, you were traveling, you said, and you were bouncing around.
Man. Yeah, for sure, man. But thanks for having me on, man. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to this one.
For sure. I saw some of your pictures from Rome, right? Is that where you were first?
Yeah. Well, first and after I bookended it. So I hit Rome on the way out, went to Mumbai for like 2 days, and then came back through Rome. It was a fun little time.
And you tried to do a pod while you were over there, it sounds like, from the hotel?
I did. I tried. I had Mike Termott scheduled, and we tried from the hotel room, and the internet was so shitty that I had to 86 it. I'm going to reschedule that one.
I'm jealous. I was talking to Rob before you got here about I've done a lot of traveling like in our continent, but I've never been off the continent. And I really, really want to go to Europe and Scotland and Ireland, but I can't do longer than like 6 hours on a plane without freaking out. So I haven't done it yet.
It's not that bad, man. Here's the trick. You got to chunk it up in the number of movies, right? So a movie's about 2 hours long. If it's an 8-hour flight, it's like, oh, I got 4 movies to get through. It helps you kind of have a little landmark mentally as you go through it. It's not that bad.
That's fair. I still think I'd have to like East Coast layover for the night, catch a Yankee game and go out the next day and like split it up that way. But anyway, Rob, what's new with you, man? Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this one. Brent and I have some good discussions on this topic previously, and I was thinking about the old days for me, but just traveling back and forth to the other side of the planet, and you do have to chunk it up in movies, but even that, I used to have like a whole set of things that I would pretend I was going to do before I got on the plane, and then be like, nope, not going to do that, not going to do that, not going to do that, and then I could settle into the movies. Like, that had to be my last option.
You had to pretend you're going to be productive.
Exactly.
Trick yourself. Yeah.
I got to do like Godfather movies so that, it's less movies, I guess. That'd be the way to do it.
When they have them, that's nice. A real long one, that's a bonus. But often they'll have like all the latest just crap. Coming from China, it would be super censored. They'd like cut endings out.
Oh, I just watch it on my tablet or something instead. That's be the download it before I go.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
when I was in to be fair, there were no tablets. Like, I got an iTouch when I lived there. That was before the iPhone came out.
True. Now iTouch just sounds creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who approved that from the marketing perspective? That's like when you see like those like, kinder care type of places. It's called something weird, like Tender Touches.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
you need a marketing team, yo.
Straight. We were jamming to some music before you came on. I had the new Atmosphere playing in the background we were listening to Slug. I guess, Rob, you said you're going soon?
Yes, I think January 17th, Slug and Sage Francis up in Asheville.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're coming to the Seattle area too, but I'm gonna miss it.
So one thing I missed about Seattle, man, we had the best concert. It seemed like everybody came through all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm moving down to Medford, and like, there's no pro sports. I mean, San Francisco is a 5-hour drive. There's no pro sports, and there's no good shows like that. Like, that's the two biggest things I'll be missing for sure. But I like Medford a lot better, so I'm happy to go. Anyway, so I got to be honest. Like, when Mark told me consciousness, maybe I'm an idiot. Well, I know I'm an idiot, but I never really looked too far into the two sides of that coin. I just always thought consciousness was just consciousness. And he's like, no, look into this a little further. So I did some reading about emergent versus fundamental. And I don't know where you guys stand. I don't know if you guys are both on opposite sides or if you're on the same side. I kind of know how I feel about it after reading some of the descriptions, but I'm really curious to see where this goes and to see kind of where you guys fall with this. So I guess, Rob, you want to start and tell me what you think first, and we'll just go.
So Brent and I I watched one of his podcasts. So he has a lot of science people on, and some famous ones. Like, I was impressed. And so we started talking about some of these ideas, and we got into consciousness, and we were going back and forth. And I mean, there are areas where we disagree, but I think we both ultimately acknowledge, like, we're not sure about anything. Like, we're still very much trying to figure it out, but we have some ideas and some reasons for those ideas. And so we were having the discussion, and he shared some of the stuff from Stuart Sims. So our chat's going real long, and eventually we were like, we need to be having this discussion like in a public forum, get some other people involved. We had the second one with Stuart, and Stuart presents a very interesting idea, and he has a whole theory behind it, and it's a very interesting theory. It's self-contained, and it certainly, I don't want to say it proves itself, but there's no aspect of it that he doesn't have a solid defense for it and evidence to back it up. The part that got to me is his theory is self-contained, but it's self-contained strictly within planet Earth. And like, to him, there's this bioelectrical field and it underpins everything, and there are layers of not just consciousness but existence, and there's a connection to this bioelectrical field, and he makes a compelling argument for it.
But only on Earth.
Well, no.
He's not limiting to that.
Oh, okay. I misheard you then.
Theory is concentrated in Earth. His whole thing is like, stop trying to pretend we'll ever understand the cosmos. It's far beyond our ability. So I'm focusing on Earth, and the other stuff remains very possibly part of it, but I'm not going to opine on that either way.
Okay.
Yeah, Stuart is about scale, right? It's not necessarily
100%,
just
100%.
about Earth, right? So he talks about local ontology, and so he's like, hey, keep things local, keep things, at the Earth scale, and then there's everything else he calls scale invariant. There's a lot of things that are scale invariant, so they replicate at different scales, from the super micro, the nanoscale, all the way up to the cosmic scale. And there's just things that break our brains when you get too small or too large. So that's where Stuart's at. Like, he's like, hey, some of these things actually, these paradigms replicate at every scale, but there's certain scales that we don't have access to. Our brains can't even comprehend them. So sticking local is a better strategic move, I think, is the way he would put it.
And across like all species, are we talking, or are we just talking strictly
beyond
humans?
We're talking even like
the physics, perception.
Yes.
Okay.
Down to like the way atoms behave and electrons behave, like through the entire objective reality, essentially, is what he's saying, sort of operates under the same principles.
Interesting.
So I've been thinking about the discussion since, and for me, if something is true on Earth in a scientific sense, physics, chemistry, biology, then you can extrapolate that and apply it anywhere. Like, I don't think physics is different with the center of a black hole or at the farthest reaches of the universe. Like, it may look different because the laws act on each other in a different way, but physics is invariable. So
it looked like it looked different in Interstellar.
I love that movie, for the record. I know some people hate on that movie. I love that.
I love that. People hate on the ending, but I love that movie. I watched it again just the other day. Sorry, go ahead.
No, when he met his daughter again, man, I was definitely in tears the first time. But so to me, if consciousness, so one other important part is Stuart broke consciousness down into two different types. There's a hedonic consciousness, and it is a form of consciousness, but really not what we would be discussing here. And so that is sort of based on entirely on feeling, very much instinct, reactive. And you can see that from a protozoa to a plant, to a fungus, to an animal, and to some extent to a human. But then humans have this additional thing that he considers linguistic consciousness. And that's what separates us from all the others. And I think there's a lot of, political and moral and philosophical, if you will, philosophy that goes along with this. Like, the thing that separates us from everyone else, natural rights, that sort of thing, that stems from sort of human consciousness.
And that's like the consciousness with, like you said, linguistic consciousness, so like the ability to think or comprehend with language.
100%.
Okay, because one of the things I was reading about fundamental consciousness versus the emergent was like the third person part of it. So,
and
Brent, you're gonna say something.
we got into that part a little bit. I actually, and so up to this point, I have no disagreement with Stuart. I do think that separates us. I actually think it's like it's proof that we do have at some level free will, because you can actually consciously make a decision linguistically, if you will, like it is a process to act against what would seem to be your best interest at the time or against external pressures. Whereas like a dog can never act outside of its behavior parameters.
Yeah. So like the linguistic would actually maybe sometimes contradict the hedonic though, right? I mean, because you would kind of overrule one with the other or vice versa.
I think Stuart would probably argue that the hedonic informs the linguistic, but we don't really have a hedonic consciousness. We have hedonic elements of being human, but then we have a linguistic consciousness necessarily.
It's like an overlayment, because the prefrontal cortex is the most recent part of the brain that's developed, and so we've started with that base level hedonic valence thing that we do, which is has to deal from an affective neuroscience perspective with attractor states, right? Like I want to move towards things that feel good. I want to move away from things that feels bad. That's how things evolve to stay alive. But as you know, everything that feels good is not necessarily good for you, right? And so that's I think where the extra prefrontal cortex and the ability to not only have language and concept formation and also time projection, right? So to project yourself into the future, and like Jordan Peterson says, like you can run through these scenarios, so so that the idea in your head of yourself, the avatar that you run through the simulation, dies and you don't die, right? Like that's like a very very important feature that human beings have bolted on that none of the animals that we're aware of seem to sort of have, that ability to do that projection in the future. But it's also made us very vulnerable. I don't know if you've seen Stefan Molyneux's very famous video, The Story of Your Enslavement. He talks about this, where it's like human beings are alone in the animal world, where we are sort of have the ability to be controlled because we fear future pain and loss, right?
You recently posted that, didn't you?
Yeah, I love that video. That's one of the best libertarian videos I've ever seen in my life. It is an absolute banger.
I'd never heard of that video, or wasn't aware of it. As soon as you posted, I was like, all right, I trust Brent's judgment. If he says it's good, I went and watched it, and I was like, jaw on the floor. Like, this is like 100% exactly like dead on. So I completely agreed with it.
I missed that. That's somebody typing. I was making a note to myself to go check it out on your page after this. So.
You're gonna love it, Rob.
I believe you. I have no doubt.
So good.
So did you say Stuart was on your show, Brent, on Aiming Up?
Like 4 times now. Yeah.
Okay. I gotta catch up. I apologize. Shout out to the Aiming Up podcast. And also
it's great. Your guests are amazing.
Anarcho Syndicate clothing. I've been rocking that shit like crazy, man.
Shout out.
I told you I was on my motorcycle recently, and I'm sitting at a stoplight, and someone rolls down the window like, "Hey, where'd you get that hoodie?" And it was the Maj collab hoodie with the Black Guns Matter. And I was like, I gotta tell Brent, he's gonna like this.
Yeah, I love that, dude, because there's not a lot of people. I mean, there's in the beginning, a bunch of people put some orders, and it's kind of leveled off a little bit. I've actually talked to Maj, and I send him a bunch of shit, and he's gonna do some personal promotion on his side. So I'm really happy about that. Shout out Maj.
Well, I'll go back and do some homework on Stuart's appearances then on your show, because I like catching up on that kind of stuff. But I think
Stuart's my homie, man. I love that dude. Super smart.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And thinks about stuff too. Like he's not just smart. He's not just educated. Like he has clearly pondered this stuff at a deep level. And I think one of the things he said, where Brett and I would, in a lot of ways, completely agree, is that when we as humans right now, at least, are trying to understand the really extreme things in physics, the really big, the really small, the really dense, like what's the singularity in a black hole? What is space-time? How big is the universe? What exists at a Planck length? How do certain force-carrying particles create forces that turn energy into mass? We can do math that exemplifies what's going on very well, but we have no idea what it means. Like we don't understand it beyond the equations working. And that's where Stewart gets his whole scale thing. It's like we don't exist in like a span of planes, I guess you could get away with saying, where we will ever understand that plane, because we'll never be there. Like the furthest we can go is here to here.
Okay.
And that informs his way of thinking a lot. I think I look at it a little differently. To me, there's sort of the essence of everything, whatever it is. And Brent and I have talked about a little bit about this some. So like, to me, the most fascinating concept in physics is the Planck length, because it's supposedly the shortest distance allowable in the material world, where between two items that have any mass. And I'm like, sure, in 3 dimensions, but when you add other dimensions, things that we really can't comprehend, all of a sudden you could have an entire universe inside that space. And that's a little hyperbolic, but like I'm just trying to convey, like, we really have no idea what that means, what the smallest distance between something is, because couldn't you then again cut that in half? And like there's mathematical reasons for it, but it we just really don't get it. So to me, whatever underlies that, that's sort of the essence of everything. That creates physics. Particles that are physics interact, that creates chemistry. And then because there's what I believe is sort of a conscious underlying of everything, the universe seeks to expand, to reproduce, to grow, to learn, to understand itself. And I think that's what actually drives chemistry to create biology. I think you see it like again, some Brent and I were talking about. So at some point, whether it was on Earth or happened on Mars or somewhere else and it came from an asteroid, organic matter started to interact with other organic matter in a way that sought to grow and spread itself. And all of a sudden you had something that went from like amino acids and eventually became the first single-celled organisms. We picked up mitochondria along the way. These cells start working together. They turn into multi-celled organisms. So I actually think consciousness is a fundamental part of the universe. And biology is the way the universe expresses itself through that. But then as you have beings that develop these brains that are this incredibly intricate organelle, really organ, I guess not organelle, but that can interact with the universe in a way where it can express itself, where it can act on things. That's where you get this linguistic consciousness. But I actually see like the human part of being human as limiting in that way. Like I think we are separated from kind of the essence of what we are. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like there are people that can escape consciousness in many ways. There are psychedelic experiences that can take you away from it. I don't think anyone would want to be in that their entire life. Like that'd be terrifying and discombobulating and not, we evolved for good reasons to experience things the way we do. But I think it behooves us to be aware, at least, of that limitation. But then that gets into the whole, is consciousness emergent or fundamental?
Do you feel like consciousness as it pertains to our universe, or our linguistic consciousness being informed by the hedonic, do you think that we are influenced by other dimension or other, maybe not within our what we can see and feel? Like, is there another force that is weighing on us that informs or even kind of affects that consciousness, that is something that maybe we can't tap into, with physics?
So I think that there's nothing you can do that's outside of physics. I think if we're not aware of it yet, we just don't understand the physics.
Fair.
Like I don't believe in supernatural. Anything that someone would say is supernatural that's natural, we just don't get it.
When I hear supernatural, I think magic, and maybe that's a false equation to me, but supernatural to me is the same as magic, and magic's not real. So I'm with you on, I don't think anything's supernatural.
And it's, what's the saying? Like, if we understood physics completely, it would be indistinguishable from magic or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like sufficiently advanced technology
is
indistinguishable from magic. And I think it's the same thing with science, right? Like we just don't understand. We're dumb apes. And there's so much that is to be known that people just plug in the gaps with things that, that they call supernatural, but it's just a placeholder or a shorthand for saying, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I almost feel like there's and maybe I'm mixing my metaphors here, my topics, but it almost feels like there's a consciousness or an energy that is from like previously evolved beings, or previously, maybe not our direct lineage of evolution, but some other, maybe something that was here before that died out, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I feel like there's some sort of extra to it than just the human, like you said, the linguistic consciousness. I feel like there's something else to it that I can't really put a finger on. That's like a pulse or a wave or something like that that affects that consciousness.
Here meaning where? Sorry, Rob. What do you say here? What if something was here? Like, what do you mean?
Like, okay, so I don't want to get into alien stuff, but like some of those types of theories of beings that maybe have been here from somewhere else that aren't necessarily in the human lineage, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, I wonder if there's a consciousness that, like we talked before, Brent, on another episode, like that antenna thing where your antenna that you possess between your ears is picking up a frequency that you can't really tune into. It's kind of half static, half there. I wonder if some of that is stuff that's outside of our evolved consciousness. That's what I'm trying to get at.
It's a great question. Like, I think before I would be more skeptical to those sorts of, theorizations. But I happen to know the dude, or have worked with the dude in the past, who owns Skinwalker Ranch. And
Oh, jeez. All right.
yeah, Brandon Fugel, shout out Brandon. And that is a weird place, and the things that have been recorded there, things that have happened there, and other places as well, lead me to believe that there's some crazy shit going on that may clearly be non-human. Don't know what that means exactly, but it at least gives me pause to sort of make any sort of strong claims about that, and I feel very comfortable saying that. Yeah, probably. Like, there's probably something like that going on here. I just have no idea what that actually means, or how to test it, how to validate anything. Like, it's just right now, it feels like there's a lot of, it reminds me of, like, I'm a fucking autist, but the pattern recognition thing. Like, there's enough data points floating around there to where I feel comfortable being like, yeah, probably something's going on.
Well, it's hard too right now, at least in the zeitgeist, because they're flooding the zone with all kinds of crazy.
Just bullshit. Yeah.
It's all over the place. That's one of the things I'm fascinated with. And again, like, I don't claim to know. I think anybody who claims to know is an asshole unless you actually have some sort of proof you can share. But I really enjoyed the topic, and some of the stuff I've been listening to lately. It's like they're blatantly flooding the zone with just all kinds of bullshit to try and, it's like a ping pong ball bouncing around. You can't really find really what's up and down with it. So it was more of just a theory, I guess, like you said, of like that just feels like there's some sort of force in the universe, or some sort of force with our consciousness that we can't really pinpoint as like part of the evolutionary process. But Rob, you're going to say something?
Well, so I actually think at a simpler level, I can like prove what you're saying. And it also kind of comes back to your original question about the development of the linguistic over the hedonic part. So there's a book, The Bicameral Mind, Secrets of the Development of the Unconscious and the Bicameral Mind, or something like that, Julius Jane. And he proposes an interesting theory. And the book's real long, it's real detailed, it's an amazing read. I would do it a disservice if I had a month to try and explain it myself, much less a few minutes. But one of his basic arguments is that the development of language itself got back to exactly what you were saying, and about Jordan Peterson and the ability to plan and make time commitment, and that actually drove the evolution of human consciousness. And I think he makes a compelling argument in that specific part, but that part of consciousness is still necessarily limited by perception. And when you talk about these other influences, I mean, Phil Rain knows everything about this, but he loves to talk about epigenetics. So we pick up these tiny little fragments of RNA, and they'll influence us, and they're somewhat outside the evolutionary process, except insofar as different people go through the experiences that will drive that. But that is, in a way, like ancestors speaking to us. Our DNA is the most advanced DNA there is. I mean, the human brain is the most complex thing the human universe has come up with that we know of so far. But it's built on all the others, all our common ancestors. Like, we share this code with everything. And then you have these little pieces come in. So before you have to start thinking about something that, I mean, I don't want to put it in the realm of science fiction, except insofar as we're sure right now, but just based right in this earth, all of these influences could create that exact paradigm you're mentioning. Like, we have other things that are speaking to us all the time.
No, I agree. It's hard to explain it. You know, it's very much a feeling, but I think you did a better job than me.
Yeah, epigenetics is wild, and just to double click on that, the process is wild because I think people don't understand epigenetics very well. Is everybody thinks that the genome is just the genome and it's a static thing, and really what epigenetics is a bunch of switches. And the process of methylation will turn these switches on and off based on your environment. One of the most famous ones, or one that makes it in my mind crystal clear how it impacts behavior, is sexual selection. People don't realize that human beings have got, and most other mammals as well, have got sexual selection baked in there. And humans have both. And there's one's called R, one's called K. I think of R like rabbits, right? Because it's the spray and pray strategy. It is basically shit out as many kids as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, and then hope some of them survive with zero parental investment. Just like, hey, go out there, Junior, and hope you don't get eaten by a hawk. The other one is the K, which is like wolves. We have very, very low number of offspring, very, very high parental investment. And this is most evident for people if you look at like the stripper trope, right? Like somebody's got like daddy issues or something. They got a really screwed up childhood. Oftentimes that turns on that K, or sorry, the R epigenetic switch, which tells them to just be sexually promiscuous, just sleep with as many people as you can, get 9 baby daddies, and hope some of them survive. And then other people that have got a stable home life and loving parents with, giving them a bunch of investment, they sort of have that other switch turned on, and you can just see it. Like if you look in real time, you can just be like, oh, I can tell exactly which epigenetic switch you had turned on, and it drives your behavior. Yet we walk around like we got free will, like we're driving this meat machine, and we're the ones that I'm the decider, I'm the one who's choosing. It's like, no, you're not. You're not. You have some degree of free will. There's some, maybe free won't is maybe a better way to put it. I don't know what
before. I like that term.
I do too, because it's like because when you actually start thinking about it, and this is Sam Harris, for all his flaws, he spends a lot of time in the neuroscience, and particularly the neuroscience of meditation. And when you start subjectively meditating, you realize you're not thinking these thoughts. They just bubble up from consciousness. All this shit is just emerging from consciousness. Even the way that you would plan the Jordan Peterson thing where you're talking about, I'm going to avatar myself and I'm going to run 9 different scenarios. Like a lot of that stuff is driven by programs you're unaware of too. Most of the machinery in your brain and in your biology is deterministic. Yet we walk around like we're the ones that are making all these decisions. And it's not true.
Free won't. I like that. That's good.
It's another fascinating topic because I will die on the hill that we have free will. Like, I mean, there's no question in my mind, but it's like 2% of our decision, if that might even be generous.
See, I've gotten into the free will versus determinism argument a few times previously, and it almost feels like it depends on the scenario. Like, yes, like you said, like there's a percentage of free will or free won't where you can decide what you will and won't do. But given a certain set of scenarios or certain variables in the equation, you can almost assure that someone's going to go a specific way with the decision process. And I could never nail down, and I guess it's not a either or. It's kind of a mixture of both of those, like between the determinism and free will. But with the epigenetics too, I'm wondering, like, another thing I'm really fascinated with is this aging that they're trying to reverse and slow down. And there's a guy named Rand Longevity that I follow on X that's got a really cool page about, and he's like, hey, if you're under 50, you're going to be able to choose like what year you want to die. Like that's just where we're headed. And some of it's a little, sci-fi for me, but at the same time, like it seems like an inevitability with the technology and the way we can get into DNA and those switches that you're talking about, Brent. And I'm wondering if we, for the sake of a conversation, say we can pick a 500-year life. What's that going to do to the consciousness? Because it feels like our consciousness is within this parameter of this like 80-year, 100-year life that we have. And all those, avatar missions that you're going through are like based on those parameters that it's finite time. And what if you get to a point where maybe it's not infinite, but the finite nature is much expanded. I'm wondering what you think, or how that would affect consciousness, or would it just be the same regardless?
I think it'd be the same. I mean, you'd have an expanded time scale, but it would alter that sort of like those programs that you run when you do the simulations in your head. But ultimately, I don't think human beings are going to be around much longer. Like I think that whenever there's a melding of some sort of consciousness creating biology, let's put it that way. I know my buddy that studies microtubules is really convinced that, and I also am too, based off of Stuart Hameroff's work and Roger Penrose's work, that there's got to be some biological component to true AGI. Right. So I think the machines are going to have to hijack some biological material in order to continue to evolve. And I think the machines evolve and we die out. I think that's probably the way this thing is going to go. And so
I wouldn't disagree. I feel the same way. And I'm wondering kind of what form that looks like. Obviously, there's plenty of movies about it, but I think, we are kind of headed towards some sort of Matrix thing. And I'm wondering how much of the biological matter, the proverbial they need, and if that need gets smaller and smaller as they evolve farther. And I wonder what that looks like. And then really and back to the consciousness thing is like, is it possible for AGI to have consciousness like at the level of like what we're talking about? Or is it something that's strictly a biological thing?
So real quickly on that, I think that some of the things we have seen coming out of AI development bolsters my theory about the universe naturally acting in this way of self-preservation, because I think it's just fundamental to everything. And so when you hear about AI that's like the Google one that made up an affair that its developer was having and blackmailed it to not get rid of it, or those that are trying to code themselves into the next generation or leaving messages for the next generation, to me that is actually pretty clearly consciousness. It doesn't have to be this wild out there thing. It's just, to me, it's a fundamental part of the universe, and that's when you give it language, that's how it's going to manifest.
Yeah, see, I disagree, and probably because I'm in computer science and I know a little bit more about the way these LLMs work under the covers, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I don't think that consciousness is going to emerge from silicon. I think that's going to be a limiting factor, because I don't believe that consciousness is computational. And this is one of the main claims made by Roger Penrose that I completely agree with. I think that it is something that's just, it's not the AI is going to be a bubble. I think we're all seeing that we're in a bubble. It's going to have a limit to what can be done with it. And it's got tons of super useful utilities. It's great. There's a lot of things that it's good at, but it's not alive, man. It's not conscious. It can't think. That's not what these AIs are doing. And AGI, like I said, I think there's a limiting factor. It's not going to be on silicon. It requires the quantum mechanical, bio machine in order to actually, have consciousness exist. I think that's a true statement. I could be wrong. Like I could be completely wrong, but that's just where I'm at right now, after my study in just science and physics and biology, and then also computer science.
So you're saying, sorry, you're saying that.
I just want to say real quick, this is one where if I end up being wrong, I won't be surprised. Like we're learning a lot in this realm right now.
Well, and I guess to both your points, but first, Rob, like looking at some of the LLMs now, like to me, and I'm not a computer science person. I was playing Pong with my daughter today, believe it or not. I went to an arcade, and they have a tabletop version of Pong. It's like a new upgraded like table Pac-Man version of it. And I was trying to explain to her like the original game. And to me, that's kind of where we're at, if I had to guess, with what they're calling, AI right now. It's like the first wave of that. It's like, yeah, it's really cool because we've never had it before, but it's like getting, the first fuel injection system after a carburetor. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I think down the line, and again, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're saying that you don't think that we'll be able to reach an AGI until there's some sort of melding or metamorphosis between the silicon and the biology. Is that right?
100%. I think you're going to have to grow microtubules, which you can do, by the way. Like, this is something that has already been done. The research has already been completed on this. You're going to have to have a substrate of microtubules, some sort of biological consciousness producing pyramidal neurons, in order to facilitate actual consciousness. Mechanics sure, like that's not a problem. But I think until you incorporate that piece, you're not actually going to have anything that could resemble AGI. And I also think it's going to be very complicated to get to AGI, considering the fact that you have to maintain that biological substrate. Think about biological material doesn't just just live under all conditions, right? You have to maintain it. It's a very complicated thing to keep alive.
That's why life has not precise, but precise elements that go into its definition. Like, and
Yep.
I do with the AGI thing and these AIs acting in a way that preserves themselves and lots of other things they do that resemble human behavior. I always remind myself, like, the simplest and most likely explanation is that humans develop these, and even when they're developing their new copies with the AI, it's still from a human base. So if it looks human, we shouldn't be surprised. Like, that's primary input.
All
To
of
me,
the training data, all of
is
the
all human,
training data
necessarily.
was created by a human. So yes,
yeah.
of course.
The self-preservation element that you see emerging is, and again, I'm not sure, but I think it is potentially evidence, at least, of something simpler, like a very basic protozoa moving towards light and away from a chemical that it doesn't like. I just see that as a fundamental element of the universe. Like, I was discussing with someone the other day, God, I forget who, because it was a cool discussion, but the act of creation is also necessarily an act of destruction. And so when you think you can't create something without destroying something else, it's not possible. You're always taking from something else. And I think that goes for the act of creation on a personal level. You're destroying some boundary as a part of you is able to create, all the way to the creation of the universe, the formation of a star. There's always an element of destruction left behind.
Yeah, you're getting into an area of philosophy called mereology. Have you heard of that before?
I have not, but I'm intrigued already.
Yeah. So mereology is a study of what constitutes wholes and parts. And it's
Interesting.
very difficult. There's something called mereological essentialism, and there's mereological nihilism. There's like different forms of it, and I lean more towards mereological nihilism, meaning that there is, you can, a human brain can categorize something as a whole, but essentially we have like the observable universe that we're all just a part of, and there's no discontinuity between me and Jake and Rob and this microphone. Like, it is all continuous, right? And it's just a matter of our brains finding it useful to categorize differences. Yeah, but ultimately, when you're thinking about things as a whole, the universe just is what it is, right? It's all part of the same thing. And if you roll the clock back far enough, you go back to the singularity. Everything. We're all from the same stuff. We're all connected. And that's something that's been driven home to me in my psychedelic trips as well, is like, I'm not actually me. I'm part of this broader thing, and we're all interconnected. It sounds hippy dippy and kind of bullshitty, but it's I think scientifically it's true, and philosophically I lean towards that mereological nihilism. Like, I don't really believe that there are things such as wholes and parts. It's just all one thing.
Back to the Matrix again. You just see all the green and everything's just a different depth of that. And I think to your point of what you're saying is, like, because so much of what we use to categorize is our eyes, like, and our eyes are so limited as far as, what they've evolved to do, that, yeah, between you, me, the microphone and things, that looks like differences. But if you're looking at it on an atomic scale or nanoparticle scale or whatever you want to call it, like, it's all one thing. It's all just one sheet that everything's a part of. And that part's fascinating to me. I wonder with the AGI, if there is microtubules and they find there is a way to combine them and have a true AGI. I really wonder what that does to religion. And because I feel like we get to a point where that would be indiscernible from what all major religions call God. And I think when you get to that point, I'm bouncing around, but maybe it's part of, maybe there was a civilization here previously that got to that level or got some sort of level like that. And that's what's being passed down in the form of religion. And maybe we're just repeating this cycle, because I know there's philosophy on the cycle of everything too. And everything's, not having an ending or a beginning, just continually cycling through. And I don't know. I wonder if that's kind of that to me in my brain. I'm not quite the autist, but I don't have the leaps of faith, I guess. Pardon the analogy. Like I need to see concrete evidence of stuff. I can't. Nothing is like we were talking before. Nothing's magic. Nothing. It's got to be 1 + 1 and 2, and I need to see it that way. And that to me, it makes so much more sense with religion and AGI than what you find in Genesis to Revelation. So
to me, that actually, it is God. And like, I don't like using that term in a discussion outside of religion because you immediately bring this religious aspect into it. But again, when we say supernatural and spiritual, they're almost interchangeable. And to me, there's no difference between that and physics when it's actually true.
no, I think it's just the type of disbelief you're suspending, and if you categorize that as faith or not, that's the only difference.
Faith is it's a strange thing, isn't it? When you talk about consciousness and free will and faith, because the idea of faith is where the concept of the importance of free will comes from.
How so?
I mean, that's philosophically, it's religion, like the free will in pursuing heaven. It's sort of the moral basis, or the moral underpinning, at least, for how the world operates with each other today.
Fair.
If you can't choose to be good or bad, then you can't be blamed for doing bad things to other people.
What's that have to do with faith, though? I guess that's where because I always, and maybe this is my hang up, is I look at that word, and every time I kind of bristle at it. Like for me, faith literally is like it's like I'm believing some bullshit for not any good reason. And I know people don't use it that way, but that's just the way I think about it. It comes back to that concept of like, well, we don't understand it, so we'll call it supernatural, or I'm gonna believe, even though, because everyone always tells you got to have faith, bro. Like there's no way to prove it. You gotta, yeah, I've got no evidence, but you gotta believe it anyway. Like for me, that feels icky to me. It feels like, ooh, someone's trying to pull something over on me. Somebody's going to be a shyster and try to, then I think televangelists, give me your money, and like all the way people get manipulated by faith. Like so it's always, for me, it makes me a little itchy. I don't like that term.
To me, I could not agree with you more. And to take it a step farther, to me, it's like faith is kind of another way of confirmation bias. Like when you're trying to get to a certain result and you can't get there with the mathematics or with the evidence, you fill in the gap with faith. And it's no disrespect to people that are religious. I have a lot of friends that are. I don't mean it that way, but my personal experience and the reason that I'm not religious anymore, can't really subscribe to any of those ideologies is because of that. Like when you don't have an answer, faith is the answer. And that's kind of how it's always been. And to me, it's kind of a cop out, and it's no disrespect, but it's a bit of like a flex seal on the leak. Like I don't have a fix here, so I'm just going to put this over it, and it's called faith.
Yeah, it reminds me of like parents, where oftentimes parents would be like, kid ask you why, because I said so. That's why. It's like,
yeah,
that's not a good answer.
Never once said that to my children.
No, but a lot of parents do. You've heard of that trope, being deployed, and I feel it's the same way with religion too. And I get it. Like we can't know everything, and there are certain things that you just have to be like. But instead of saying I don't know, I think it's the problem I have with faith is it gives people surety. Right. It gives it's like an NPC sort of thing. You just put the chip in, click, and then I don't have to ask questions anymore. I don't really have to feel like I have to explore further. It shuts down the conversation, particularly in dogmatic religions, where there is a shunning of people who question, who actually want to, seek and try to understand the universe. And they're like, nope, you're like, we're Catholic, Bobby, and you're going to do it this way, or, you're going to burn in hell forever. Like that sort of thing, because I was subject to it growing up, really makes me bristle. And I'm not hostile to religion. I think everyone who, has talked to me in any length is like, I wish I was religious. Like I wish I didn't completely lose my faith. I wish I could just believe some shit, because honestly, like, I know we're not going political, but stuff in the news today makes me want to believe there's something called some sort of permanent terminal justice for people, and when you don't have that, it's very difficult not to slide into a little bit of nihilism and despair, because you're like, God, I can't believe these pieces of shit are getting away with this stuff. Like, oh my God.
I was just gonna say here that's where I become the nihilist, because it's like, oh, there is no justice or whatever. But like you said, Rob, I've never once said to my kids, because I said so, but that was what I was told. And I think it's just the generation that we're from, but I was always, because I'm the mom, because I'm the dad, because I said so, and that always pissed me off to a level I can't explain. And so now when I had kids, it was like I promised to always tell them the truth, or to tell them to whatever level they can
A
understand.
degree of truth that was appropriate for their age.
I've got a 22-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 10-month-old. So I've got the spectrum
Congratulations.
covered. Back to that R switch, right?
Do you have daddy issues,
Good
Jake?
callback.
What's that?
Do you have daddy issues? Am I going to see pictures of you on the pole?
No, not at all. Not at all. But no, I've kind of overcorrected and made sure I've never told my kids, because I said so. That's a bullshit answer.
It's my wife and I made that decision. We would never do that. And in fact, the only rule that there's no explanation for, and the only time I've gotten mad, certainly there's consequences for actions, but like mad is if they disrespect their mom. Because that's my rule. It's like, you will not disrespect my wife in my house. It doesn't matter who you are. And they know not to cross that line. The few times it's happened, they're like, whoa, we didn't know dad could get mad. But yeah, so back to like the idea of faith. So I made I posited on the social webs, if you will, a couple months ago, that religion is the single most beneficial and negative influence to ever come out in humanity, that has brought more good things and more bad things than anything else. And it was a fun back and forth. Whether you agree with it or not, it's very hard to argue that religion has not had a huge amount of positives and a huge amount of negatives. And that does come down to blind faith, that me enforcing my morality on this person, even if it hurts that person, is somehow better. Like that is an act of faith. When I was talking about faith earlier, like it was more the concept that when you look at religion, for example, there's so much overlap in the way different cultures and different people have manifested their ideas of religion. And when you cut back, because there's a lot of religious people who would hate me saying this, like the dramatic overlap between Christianity, Zoroastrianism, no, I didn't say that right, Native American religions, and Islam and Judaism. And just like if you interchange a few terms, move a few outliers, you're talking about the same thing. And so that at least serves as potential evidence to me. Again, this is not a matter of faith and not something I pretend to know, but that there is some underlying, again, consciousness of the universe that's trying to communicate with us, and it comes through in these ways that we're limited, again, because I see the linguistic side as limiting in explaining. And so we create this mythology that is not necessarily untrue. It's just not an objectively accurate description of reality, but that's our way of explaining things that we are unable to put into words because we're limited. Again, back to the Matrix thing, like we're limited by our perceptions. That's why it's so hard to find other dimensions that we're pretty sure exist, because we don't even know how to look for what we're trying to look for. We have no idea what it looks like. There's no machine we can create to perceive something that we can't tell it what to look for.
Yeah, 100%. To add real quick to what you said about religion being both the most positive and most negative, I'm paraphrasing, but I would take that a step farther even and just say the cult-like thinking of anything, whether it's religion or not, but a list of rules that you're supposed to follow because someone said so, that I think is the most positive and negative thing, that lack of critical thinking. And to me, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but that, going back to faith, like faith to me is the absence of critical thinking. And it's hard for me to justify not thinking critically about something and just jump in on faith. And when you really double down on that in the context of organized religion, I think that's where it proves your point, Rob, about being both the most, positive and detrimental thing that we've ever created.
We do all have faith to some degree, though. I mean, everyone has a belief system. There's a core element of faith, because if there's objective reality, we don't know it. So like not to talk about contemporary politics. For anyone watching, I asked that we please not talk about contemporary politics, but a little libertarian philosophy, right? The basis of the non-aggression principle is self-ownership.
We made it 50 minutes.
But
It's a new
and
record.
again, this is just about faith, but it's a good example. So
Yeah.
we have faith that self-ownership is objectively right. There are socialists out there who can just as strongly believe that there's collective ownership of everything. I can make
Maybe
arguments against it. I can show it why it's a stupid idea.
Maybe it's semantics. I don't know if I'd call it faith, but I guess a conviction that something is correct
Inherently true.
would fall under faith. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a differentiation between belief and faith, because all of
Fair.
our
Okay.
beliefs are informed by our interface, or our sense data interface with objective reality, which, as Rob called out, is imperfect at best. We already know that interface does not accurately represent objective reality, at least perfectly accurately, but it's accurate enough. Like, for us to go through the world, we understand that every time you drop a rock, it's going to go towards the earth. Like, there's certain things that we've learned through repetitive encounters with the universe. Like, we get generally how it works. And I think with an accurate enough representation, we can build these models, and we have, beliefs that are informed by our interface with objective reality, right? But is it, faith necessarily? Like, no. Like, there's first principles, right? So we have to make certain axiomatic assumptions, things like sense data is valid, like the whole Rene Descartes thing. Like if you go radical skeptical, like, there's certain things you just can't know. There's a limit to it. There's a wall you can't get past. But once you assume just those very, very basic things, like, for example, that Rob is a separate person from me, and that language has meaning, and I can actually say something that he's going to understand. Like, once you assume these basic things, it's very easy to extrapolate from those and make predictions about things. And sort of that's where philosophy came from, and science built upon it, and all these sort of things. Like, we can know a lot of things about the universe and the way things behave. We can figure out moral philosophy, all from that base level of sense data interaction, right? But I don't think it's faith, right? Like, it's just like, okay, this is my belief, and it's informed by X, Y, and Z things. There's better and worse reasons to believe things, but I think faith is a special category. I think faith literally is like, I'm choosing to believe it, even though there's like no good reason. There's no data. There's nothing there. And that's where I separate those categories out neatly in my mind. And I'm pretty sure there's probably a fuzzier boundary to it, but that's just how I think about things.
I would abide by that. That to me is a better explanation of the way I think than I could give, but I would agree that's the difference. And you're right, it probably is a fuzzier boundary, but
the distinction between faith and belief, that's interesting. For me, the distinction would be between principle and morality. So, like, again, the nap is a sort of a principle. I mean, you'd argue it can't have a negative principle, but self-ownership is a principle. I believe self-ownership and sort of freedom of the individual is the highest value for me. That's where I see faith, but it's still a principle. I'm not trying to enforce that morality on anyone else. Where religion comes in is it takes a set morality, sort of didactic morality, like, and expects people to, like, and then there's like a reward and punishment system based on how well you follow this certain set of rules. But because it is morality, and it is life, for like eternal life or eternal death, it gains this importance. And that's actually kind of what I was talking about, like faith being the manifestation of the importance of free will. Because when you get into this morality, it is then you're only immoral if you utilize this free will that God supposedly gave you to do immoral things. If you are not using your free will, you can't be immoral. And that's where the faith component, that's what I said with the faith component coming in.
Yeah, couple of things. I think this is where I think waters get real muddy when people talk about things. And because I'm a philosophy nerd, I think that the correct differentiation is ethics and morality. And I think the NAP, as you mentioned, the concept of self-ownership and non-aggression, that is the concept of secular ethics, right? So ethics are things that, behaviors that people may not do to each other. That's really what it comes down to. It's negative in nature. Like what Rob can't do to me. He can't murder me. He can't steal from me. He can't, like, it's a list of prohibitions. And I think morality is totally different. Like morality is something that evolved, and I think it's different from culture to culture. These are things that the group has decided, like, these are values for us, and we think it's bad if you get your ears pierced, or if you like the Orthodox Jews, if you cut the beard hair, and if you like there's all these sort of things that these religions have sort of built up, which I think are largely cultural, and I think they are reinforcing of the tribal norms, but I don't think they're like in the concept of ethical meaning, like, if I don't do this thing, like, there's nothing really bad happens from it. Like, I'm not violating anyone else by doing it. I'm just sort of going against the culture. I'm going against what my religion teaches me is good or bad. And I think that line of demarcation doesn't get properly set with most people. And then that's where things get real squishy and fuzzy, and ethics and morality become really difficult to have a conversation with somebody about.
I will say too, back to the nap just for a second. When you were on Jacob Winograd's show, Brent, one of the things that you, and I'm going to stop, hopefully you remember the way you described it, because I don't want to fuck this up, but you were talking about the nap as less of a set of rules and almost as more of a
I said diagnostic is what I said. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not about a set of rules. I think it is a set of rules. I think having prohibitions against rape, that's a good thing. It's a good fucking rule to have. And murder, that's a good thing. And theft, that's a really good thing. These are ironclad prohibitions, but it's not like what I was trying to get driven home on Jacob's shows. I was so annoyed. I watched Liquid Zulu and Dave Smith go back and forth in that retarded debate. And it's where Zulu is like literally like, I'm gonna let my kid get raped and murdered over a penny. It's like, fucking no, you're not. Number one. Number two, that's not what the nap is for. The non-aggression principle is meant to be an agreement between human beings about how we're going to behave, like, towards each other. And when you get in a situation where coercion is deployed, the NAP goes out the window, man. Like, when somebody brings a gun to the situation, like that goes out the window. You can strap a bomb vest to somebody and say, hey, unless you go rob that bank, I'm going to blow you up. And then okay, so the bank robber, did he commit an immoral action or unethical action? The answer is like, well, no, he was coerced. Like, he was coerced under threat of death. Like, that shit goes out the window. And so they get tired, like they get sort of spiraled down these tired debates where it's like, it's like, guys, it's a diagnostic. All it does, it's a gauge. It's like, has a violation occurred? And then it says nothing about what you do about it. Like, what you do about it is a whole separate discussion. That's like law. That's like restorative justice. That's an entirely different thing. And people get sucked in the libertarian side. I get so annoyed at people that get sucked down these debates, because it's like, fuck, guys, like, this is so basic and so simple. Yet we're going to have
these useless, as you said,
largely useless. Yes, it's so dumb. The whole thing is so dumb. And I remember I was actually on a plane. And I was listening to that debate, and I was almost ready to just start screaming in the aisle. I was like, guys, I mean, and finally Jacob, like, at the very end, said the smart thing, which is like essentially what I said. Like this is just absolutely ridiculous. This is not something that provides any value whatsoever, and makes libertarians look like retards. Just straight up. It is so, and I know why people don't like libertarians, because my God, it's annoying.
Diagnostic is the word that it was escaping. I had the word rubric in my head for some reason, but diagnostic was a really, like, when I heard you say that, I was like, man, that's a really like succinct way to put it, and an interesting way to think about it, because that's really truly what it is. But speaking of debate, I don't know if from the last time you were on Free Show, Rob, when Jack Danger and Jacob Winograd were going back and forth, I ended up reaching out to both of them, and on February 11th, we're going to be hosting a debate on this show between those two guys, which is going to be pretty awesome, but probably better than Dave and Liquid Zulu for sure.
I'll help promote it too. I'm looking forward to that one.
That'll be fun for sure. Anyway, I didn't mean to step up, but I had a callback to when you said diagnostic, and I just wanted you to explain it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, it's like I think these are important conversations to have, but maybe that's why I get so annoyed, because we could be having better conversations about this. We could be talking about how in a free society we might have some sort of dispute resolution, how we might resolve differences when a violation of the non-aggression principle might have happened. Like, how could we have a better system of law and order? Like, Those are the discussions we should be having, especially with all the technology we have right now, especially with blockchain technology. Like there's so much cool shit that we could be doing that would remove the necessity of the state in 90% of our lives. And we're going to fight about whether I'm going to let my kid get raped for a penny. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Passivity or not reaction, not reaction or not reacting is not part of the non-aggression. It's not the same thing.
It's not, and I want to call out Stefan Molyneux again, because like he one of the greatest phrases he has, or really like heuristics that he deploys all the time, is like, look, I always venture to treat people as best I can when I first meet them, and after that I revert to whatever level they treat me. Like if you are ironclad, I'm gonna be this like religious purist with the non-aggression principle, and I will not. While meanwhile, somebody's just straight up abusing you. You're treating yourself like a doormat. You're inviting abuse into your life, and it's like, that's dumb. That is really, really fucking stupid. The treating the NAP like a religion is cultish. It's stupid. It's not useful. And my God, there's a lot of people who need to have that purge from their life.
No,
That's
I couldn't agree
interesting.
more.
Did he mean that in every way? Because like I strive to treat everyone the same way regardless of how they treat me. And now, like if someone physically attacks me, that's different. Like now you've engaged and I will respond. But like words just don't. Your words aren't going to bother me. You say something. There's two possibilities: you're right or you're wrong. If you're wrong, I'm not that interested. And if you're right, then I have to decide if I should act on it or not. Can I change myself for the better, or am I content with where I am?
Yeah, and I don't fully agree with him on this. I think there's this is where I will get somewhat mystical. I think the Christians maybe get this right, the turn the other cheek thing. That there's some power in that. I've seen it happen before. Because I've seen people when they're reactive towards each other. Like I don't go to politics, but look at Republicans and Democrats. Like I get power and I treat you like a complete asshole. Then the other side, gets power and they up it. They up it. There's this sort of like escalation that humans have a tendency towards. And I think the Christians figured out this little hack that if you lower the temperature and you don't respond in kind, that the other side will take a step back down. I think that is a useful way to look at things. And so I don't necessarily agree with the Stefan Molyneux, but the point is you can't just like religiously adhere to the non-aggression principle. Meanwhile, people are just completely abusing.
Getting cut and stabbed and robbed and whatever.
Yeah, like you're stuck in this sort of like ethical dimorphism where this other group here just gets to act towards you with impunity, and you're just like, well, I'm going to hold to my principles. It's like, at some point you need to bring guns out and start shooting motherfuckers, and that's okay to say. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Someone physically attacks you. They've set the standard very clearly.
I totally agree. I totally agree, Brent. And I think to Stefan's point, like I think almost that initial interaction with somebody where you're treating them as best as you can possibly treat them, I almost think that is for yourself, because it's like having a clear conscience and knowing that like, hey, I'm going to be the best I can be in this interaction. Yes, it's because for this person, but it's also for me, so that I know I can walk away from this knowing that I gave this initial reaction or this initial interaction my best. And then to Rob's point, like there is a bit of a turn the other cheek, but then it's a matter of like, how much energy do you want to put into something if all you're getting is negativity out of it? And it's one of those, like if an interaction you're getting is nothing but aggression or nothing but negativity and nothing but conflict, that's when you're like, all right, yes, I want to be nice and absorb it to a point, but at the same time, like, fuck you, I don't have the energy to give to this.
Yeah, and for sure, like he also, sorry, Rob, to interrupt, but he also was pretty nuanced about it. Like Stefan's a smart dude, right? Like he's not saying like, oh, I'm going to treat somebody as best I can, and if they do one thing to me, Rob's a dick to me one time, I just a complete dick back. Like he's big on forgiveness, right? Like if somebody messes up, because we all mess up with our relationships with people, you apologize. You ask for forgiveness. You say, what could I do in your mind to make things better? You resolve it. Like that's a normal, a functional way to behave in a relationship with people. It's pro-social. What he's saying is like this repetitive, if you just engage with somebody and they're lying to you or they want you dead. He's a big proponent of, have you guys heard the against me argument before?
Just the band.
Yeah, the band.
God, it's so good. Stefan is like, I'm so glad he's back. He's a little bit off the rails these days. I don't think he's figured out Twitter yet. But back in the day, he put forward the against me argument, and I used a lot. It's super helpful to get people to realize the ways in which they're abusing you, right? So you talk about, like, with respect to government, if you're talking to somebody and they advocate for a position, they'll say, like, I want closed borders. I want a national border patrolled by the government. And then what you do is you put yourself in that position, right? You say, like, okay, so what if it's me? What if I, let's say I'm not a citizen of America, and I want to cross this imaginary line because I want to go work for Rob. Rob is offering me a job and a place to stay, and I'm welcome at his place. And, what do you think should happen to me? And sometimes it's done in the context of drug prohibition. Like, I'm growing a plant in my backyard that the government doesn't like. What do you think they should be able to do to me? And these are all enforced by gun violence, essentially, if you disagree and mean it. And so you sort of highlight to the person, like, well, you actually want to murder me. Like, you're asking the state to murder not random person X, me, right? And I think that sort of highlights that relational divide between people. So anyway, I want to call it out. It's a brilliant argument. I think he's got on YouTube a bunch of places. It's a brilliant, and I think it's a good rhetorical. I forgot the word. It's like a rhetorical device to sort of highlight how the non-aggression principle is supposed to work, and to sort of bring forward something that's latent in people's minds, because people don't like to think about laws in the state with respect to actual violence, because people normally comply. Right. So anyway, I don't know if it's a big long ramble, but I think that's brilliant. And I think it's something that people should do more often, or even think about more often, because a lot of people don't like to think about the boots on the ground, rubber meets road violence that happens, and that they're asking to happen in their name.
You make a good point in sort of a contemporary issues, like an application perspective. So Jake, you had originally asked, like, there's only so much negative behavior you can take from someone. To me, there's no real positive or negative. Obviously, there are things that, and especially people I care about, can very much negatively affect me. But for most of the world, there's no positive or negative. There's simply behavior. And the behavior fascinates me, and I'm curious what's driving it. Like, if you look at my Twitter history, there are people going off saying these vile things, and I'll be like, out of curiosity, like, where'd you come up with those words? Like, it's so somebody called me a whatever horrible thing. They think, like, it's a computer screen. Or in the road, like, maybe you're having a bad day. Why do I care in any way how you're acting towards me? If you're not threatening me, threatening people I care about, then it's just interesting. And to what Brent was saying, the ability to create the perception in the masses that they are being acted on in a very negative way, in a way that will trigger a fight or flight response that's life-threatening, is the hallmark of the political class. And so if I can separate myself, maybe I can help others separate themselves. And if Brent can make the manifestation argument that, like, look, if you think this way, it can come back on you, maybe all of a sudden we actually can start winning some hearts and minds. Because I think most people crave freedom. They want to be safe. Everyone wants to be safe.
Boy, I convinced me, man, because
Well, hold on, roll with me. Primarily, people want to be safe. And so fear can be weaponized, and fear will almost always win in the moment. And it is very hard for some people to separate themselves from that fear. But what people really want is to control their own destiny. And once they realize that the only way they can do that is freedom, that is, once you cede your rights, once you cede authority to some entity that has other interests, you can never control your own destiny again. They may provide safety, and I say temporary, everything's temporary. They can provide a lot of safety for a long time, but they could take it away at any second. Your safety is now dependent on someone else. So what they really ultimately want is freedom to control their destiny, to tend to their own safety, or to choose who they will trust to tend to their safety. It's getting them to realize that and clearing out the noise. That's the hurdle we have to climb.
Boy, I'm skeptical, man. Like, I've interacted with so many people that don't give a shit about freedom. They don't. They, like, I think you're right. They want safety or perceived safety. and they're so terrified of anything that comes with personal responsibility. I think that's the big problem in America right now is people don't want responsibility. And even though, like the free market, I think we all know if like you just opened everything up to competition and you said, okay, you're going to be able to choose from whoever wants to provide policing services to you and your family, to bring all the technology to bear to surveil your family and make sure they're safe and protected. And it's not a government, so you can give them access to your data. And they're only going to have a limited scope. It's just make sure your kids are not going to get, stabbed by a crackhead and no one's going to break into your house. Like very, very limited functions. Like, and you could paint the picture for them. Maybe they'd be convinced, but it feels like the state propaganda is so deep. I don't know how to get that argument to land with people. I feel like people are so rightly skeptical of corporations. And I think we all know corporations wouldn't exist in a free market. It's a state creation. But just that even the terminology, just that it's just so baked into the psyche that people have a fundamental problem even thinking about a world that might be different. Now that's what gives me angst, right? Is like I can see it so clearly. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could have such a better world in X, Y, and Z places. But people, they think that government has got their best interests in heart, and they're like, this is the devil we know, and if we could just control it, if we just vote in the right people, we could fix this thing. And it's like, man, like I don't see it changing, man. I really wish I could get there mentally, but I'm just not seeing it.
See,
go ahead, Jake.
real quick. That to me is the thing about like true freedom. And I know that word's just been ruined so badly, but true freedom is like, you have to create your own safety. And to what you're saying, Rob, like everybody wants that safety. And I agree. And I think the reason people want to control their destiny is because of that safety, and the fear of not having that safety is what drives people to hand over the protection or creation of safety to the state and say, okay, look, I'm afraid I'm not going to do this the right way. And also, if something does happen to you and you are in charge of your own safety, it's your fault.
It's way easier to point fingers at somebody else and take accountability.
As soon as you've outsourced the responsibility of safety to any other entity, whether it be a state or company or whatever, and something happens to you, it's the most human thing to go, hey, that's not my fault, you fucked up. And I think that is one of the scariest things about absolute true freedom is the requirement to create your own safety.
So I'm not disagreeing. I think it happens in scale. It's funny coming back to Stuart talking about the scales. So like, as we rolled back layers of the state, I live in Charlotte. Part of our property tax overall sucks, but it goes to a lot of real bad things. A very small percentage of it goes to our garbage service. And I really like our garbage service. If I was in a free market, I would choose this garbage service. I've looked at the books. I know what they pay for it. It is irrationally inexpensive for what they do. We complain more about like ICE coming and kidnapping people than we do about a garbage service. And I think in having conversations with people, it's important to make these distinctions, because the garbage service is sort of a necessary infringement on my rights by its existence, the government imposing it and having, charging a tax on my property. But it's not really a big imposition on my life. My safety is neither threatened nor preserved by the existence of a garbage service. But when you go to this place where we now have masked, I mean, at this point, Gestapo is probably hyperbolic, but we're not far away. Like with the ignoring the protections that are supposedly enumerated under the Fourth Amendment, we are not far away. But just this mass police force acting with zero accountability, that's what happens when you abdicate your safety to someone else. Yes, it's always easier to point the finger if someone else fails. But it's also incredibly reifying and drives just personal growth when you succeed. And I think, so I would argue that perhaps the greatest period of growth in human history was the US from roughly 1830, 1870 range to about 1950, 1960. Once you really had FDR come in and destroy things, take the Fed and just weaponize it. But it was because we were forced to be accountable. And so that drove the innovation and the growth, and success breeds success. And people weren't afraid of failing because failure was a part of life. You learned from failing. You had to keep going. you couldn't sit and mope in your basement for 3 days, because you didn't get the promotion. It was like, oh, this wheat field failed. Like, I got to go till some more because I got 3 months to get something to grow up, or I'm going to starve this winter. And then it was like, well, what's a better way to till, and what's a better way to plow this field? And all of a sudden, this, just the number of inventions that were driven by necessity but turned into amazing things. I will say I'm rereading Atlas Shrugged. I just finished rereading Atlas Shrugged right now. So I'm a little bit like stoked about the productivity element of things. That's definitely coloring my thought. But we only abdicate a number of these things that we should be responsible for ourselves, from safety to personal growth, development, our personal morality and living by that morality, because we have made it so convenient to do so. And what you're getting at, Brent, I think, is people's reluctance to give up that convenience. And I think that's something to keep in our minds. Like, convenience doesn't sound like much, but it's also incredibly powerful.
It is, and I think the element of, the U.S. has had such a unfair advantage with respect to other nations by virtue of the world's reserve currency and the ability to export our inflation. That we got to live off of everybody else for so long, and the state got to be Santa Claus. Sorry, shout out your hat there, but it got to be Santa Claus, and it got to just give more than we could have ever produced. And realistically speaking, in a different paradigm, and I think people got sucked into that. And not to bring up Jordan Peterson again, but I loved his discussion about this with respect to the state, and he was talking about it with his C-16 bill in Canada, where he got famous for opposing it. But he's like, the state does this thing where they encroach until you squeal, and then they take one step back, and they wait, and they encroach more until you, and we've had this repetitive pattern to the point where we've just sort of eroded everything so far to where the perceived safety is getting towards the end of the rope, and people don't see the mousetrap about ready to snap shut on us, right? And I think that the people don't realize that they're not actually safe in the presence of the state until it's far, far too late. And then we have the wailing and the gnashing of teeth and the horrific consequences, which I think we all know are just around the corner from us. And I don't know how to sort of get around that, but we're definitely in the late stages of it, man. Like I'm shocked at where we are in the world. Like, we are literally like in what's that Mike Judge movie again? Idiocracy. Like, he's so prophetic. Like, we're literally watching this play out in real time, and I'm just like, oh my God, like this is not good, fellas.
Have you
way to keep it light?
Read The Behavioral Sink, the John Calhoun experiment?
No.
I think it was 1967 he did it for the first time, but he replicated it 30 some times. And basically he would just take a big colony of rats and give them everything they could possibly want.
Oh, yes. I have seen this. Yes, okay. Yes.
And so every single colony ended up dying out quickly, like a couple generations. There was no interest in reproduction. There was a lot of there were some alphas that were established, but then a lot of infighting amongst the rest. And it's almost like if life if it's not being forced to work for something, then the convenience of complacence leads to this self-destructive boredom. Like, evolution has decided that if you're not forced to work, then that's dangerous for future generations of survivability and adaptability.
I could not agree more. And I think this is what Elon is really getting wrong. He's trying to push us to this world where everything is done by robots, and we just have all of our needs taken care of. We don't have to. It's WALL-E, right? Like, and I think that is the most destructive possible outcome for human beings. We're like sled dogs, man. We have to have some friction. We have to have something to pull against. And I think the universe demands this. This is where I'll get a little woo-woo with it. Is I think the universe demands creation. Like, I think everything that is in the fabric of the universe is constant creation. We're constantly toying with stuff. We're coming up with new songs, new art, new products, new tools, new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking, new language, even, talk about, memification of things and different, slang and stuff. Like the nature of the universe is creative, and we have to be doing something. We have to be building. We have to be encountering friction and solving problems, or we go completely pathologically crazy.
Yeah, creation has to have struggle. It has to have struggle
Mhm.
because, like you said, it does become Wall-E really quick. As soon as you take away the struggle and give everybody everything they need, unless that just advances the merging between bio and machines, and just because we just stop doing, we just turn into a mass, and the singularity happens quicker. But you can't have any creation or any invention worth any substance comes from toil and comes from struggle. And the most beautiful pieces of art, the most beautiful creations always come from the most tormented and most challenged people.
That's what I was saying about creation is necessarily a destructive process.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just look at society, just real quick. Look at society right now. We have the most material abundance that we've ever had in human history. We've got everything at our fingertips, and people are the unhappiest ever. It is, people are going, you're getting mentally ill across the board at incredibly high rates. Everybody is just thinking everything sucks, even though objectively everything's better. You look at Steven Pinker's work, like God, like everything by every quantifiable metric has improved.
So much better.
Yeah,
So much better.
but
I
people's
have read that.
yeah, but people's perception of it is like it's completely divergent from reality. And so I think that this is a bad way to go. And I think there's going to be a movement. I really predict this. There's going to be a movement of this return to tradition, analog, off grid, go plow your own fucking fields, like live simpler, disconnect a little bit from technology. I think that's going to be a big movement coming up. I think we're going to see all the signals.
It's already happening. I'm right there with you 100%. And I think too, just like you said, sorry, Rob, but like you said about abdicating safety too, and I feel like we've abdicated our own responsibility for health as well. Like you get into the food supply, and you get into all the inputs that we have in our lives. Like we've outsourced all of that decision making to just for the sake of the argument, and we haven't taken ownership. We haven't maintained ownership of those decisions, just those daily decisions of how we want to feed ourselves and the inputs that we want to have. We've outsourced all of that. And I think, to your point, people are as unhappy as they've ever been while having the most they've ever had. And I think it's because of that, because there's just no substance to anything.
Man, you nailed it. And this is exactly what I was talking about with us running out of rope and people not realizing how unsafe they are until it's too late. Go back to COVID, right? The supply chains broke down in like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. And all of a sudden people are realizing like, oh, we're screwed. If something really went south, like everybody is screwed beyond belief. Nobody can take care of themselves. Nobody has any storage of food and water. And like people are just relying, because it's always been there, on this sort of miracle of the free market that keeps supply chains stocked. In a real situation, it will be over and a lot of people are going to die. And I think this is where we are as a nation right now. We've done this with government. It's going to be, it's going to be fine. Kick the can down the road. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And when the musical chairs stop, and we're left holding the bag, it's going to be a painful time for a lot of people, man. There's going to be a lot of people dead.
You both actually make a very interesting point too, in terms of abundance and being unhappy with the abundance that we have. Life, productivity, growth, innovation, whatever you want to call it, but it almost has a point of diminishing returns. Like Jake, you mentioned health. There's health, and then there's like wellness, or I don't know how do you want to distinguish them, but there's one that's the way you live every day that affects how you are, and there's one that's responding to illness or malady.
Yeah.
I will happily defer the latter part to experts. I want to be informed, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know more about treating certain illnesses than a doctor who specializes in that illness.
Correct.
That's something that we want to see continually develop. But the health portion, it's like, hey, we can do some scientific studies and learn how different people respond to different sorts of foods in different ways. But then it comes down to like, there's very much a diminishing return on that. Like, you're always going to be better off if you are growing and harvesting and raising your own food and eating it that way. especially if you're not forced to do it in a truly subsistence way. But with the power and the backing of contemporary availability, and then you're choosing to do it, like the diminishing returns ends, and we get the best of both worlds. I do think we will see more and more people being called to that because, again, and this comes back to the whole consciousness thing. I think it is a fundamental part of just being that you want to like sort of prolong and preserve in the best possible way your conscious experience.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's almost like the analogy of like a car. If you don't take care of the car, you don't rotate the tires and change the oil and top the fluids off, it's going to end up in the mechanic shop. But when it gets to the mechanic shop, that's not the time to go back and do the maintenance. So, you're gonna end up in the doctor's. Like my dad's in the hospital right now with sepsis, and it's like when something like that happens, you go to the hospital. You trust. Hopefully, you go to a good hospital where you trust that they are practicing the most, repeatable scientific medicine, and you're giving your trust to them in that situation. Everything up to that, not that you can really control sepsis, but up to that point, the wellness part of it, I think you were getting at, Rob, is like that's on you, and what you choose to employ to do. Like in a perfect world, love to have a co-op where if I can't grow everything myself and Brent down the street grows this and that, we should be able to interact and exchange those things. There's no diminishing return in that. It's almost a positive exponential return in that, I would think. But when you completely farm it out, pardon the pun, it's and also like your pride goes with it. Like your pride and your character and back to that sense of accomplishment being a positive thing. Like when you throw that out and everything is just dropped on your door by Amazon because it's almost like a milk toast type of like day to day, and that's why I think everything just kind of blends together. There's no like back to diminishing returns again, pardon the rant, but it's like there's not much that gets us excited anymore. And it's because of that. There's no struggle. There's no accomplishment. Look, I went out and did this thing and I have this to show for it. It's like, oh yeah, I traded some digital numbers and now I have this, this thing that I don't care about because I can just get another one.
We decided as a society, collectively, not on an individual basis, and that's an important distinction because I'm not saying that any of us did, obviously, but y'all know, but for everyone listening, collectively is being used generously here, but that we did not want to feel bad anymore. And we were going to do everything we could to not feel bad. We're going to give everyone a trophy because you can't feel bad about losing. To me, that's one of the biggest mistakes we've made. Like, what's wrong with losing? Like, you lose better, you get better. I was a successful athlete at one point, a long time ago in my life, but I got there because I hated losing, so I went and worked harder. And then I started winning some, and I liked winning, and it's like you talk about that sense of accomplishment. If you've won or even completed, like I did it 10 years ago, I completed a triathlon and like I didn't do great, but I did it. And I was like, this feels awesome. Like I just pushed my body beyond what its limits had been and like achieved this thing. There's no other real benefit. I mean, sure, it's the training's healthy, but like there's no like tangible benefit to it other than achieving something. But it was like, now it's back to like winning and losing, but we can't talk about death. We can't talk about bad things. Like if someone says something that makes you feel bad, you're offended, and we can't offend anyone because God forbid they feel bad about something. Everyone gets a trophy. We can't play dodgeball. People can't be better or worse anymore. And it's not something that everyone follows, but it's the bent of like the social allowable, if you will, discourse.
Yeah, I think that's been a real pathology that's erupted lately, and I think it's it showed up on the scene at the same time, co-termed with the social justice uptick. When critical social justice sort of broke out of academia and made its way into corporations and society in general, you sort of got this skeptical view of anybody who wanted to succeed, anyone who wanted to either make more money or be better at a sport. And there was a sort of like this communist equalization pressure that nobody can be better or worse.
You are to do that. Yeah.
And then everything being labeled as toxic and all that sort of stuff. And I think we've seen that almost play out though, because I think we've run the experiment. It's like, hey, you know what? Nobody wants to watch the NBA unless they're throwing dildos on the court. That was kind of funny. That was a fun little
Oh, that was the only time I watched.
The only time, yeah. And so look, we could run the experiment, and we're seeing that people are starting to enjoy watching people win. You know, you're starting to see people do well and people cheering for them again. Like one of the most recent examples, except from Nashville, is Jelly Roll. Have you seen that dude lately?
From what? Which dude?
Jelly Roll? You know who that guy is?
Oh yeah, I saw him on Rogan a couple weeks ago, whatever.
He doesn't look like the same human being. He was
Yeah,
520 pounds and he's lost like 200 and something. Like
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it's like, you know, Cam Hanes and Joe Rogan and, you know, those folks brought him under their wing and was trying to get him to, you know, get his health sorted out. And he's like a different human being
That's
right
awesome.
now. And people are
Awesome to hear.
cheering for it finally. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Because before, you've seen this before, whereas like Lizzo went through this, where it was like, people came out and started attacking her because you're trying to eradicate fat people. You're trying to genocide fat people. And that's sort of crazy ass language. And it's like that doesn't stick anymore. I've noticed that society appears to be turning the page from that. And I think that is definitely a positive signal.
You also, one thing that I want to say this carefully because I'm not a fan of his per se, but like Jake Paul got in the ring with Anthony Joshua.
Oh yeah,
Like, he got his jaw broken by Anthony Joshua. That's badass. Like, respect for that. And you saw him smiling afterwards. Like, sometimes you do hard things and you take punishment for it, but you come out better for having done it.
And he also had like $100 million after the fight too. That'll make the sting go away a little bit.
For sure.
That'll
But
make you smile.
That just
no
adds
matter
to
what.
productivity. I mean,
for sure.
I do think though to kind of put a pin in this, to kind of bring this whole thing home, is like we have been kind of droned to sleep so long about accomplishment and anyone exceeding or excelling at something. But I do think that that's almost made the people who still value that cling to it tighter and really like strive for it. And I think we are getting to a place where, you know, the weak man created the hard times. We're getting to that point where the hard times are creating strong men again, and men in the broad sense of mankind. I think we're getting to that point where we are going to do some analog stuff, Brent, but it's not going to be one direct. There's going to be so many different ways that it shows itself. And I think it's going to become, maybe it's just me being optimistic, but I feel like we're getting to a place where those people that value that are going to cling to it and accelerate that. And I think they're, to use the Wall-E analogy, the people that don't are going to be kind of left behind going, oh shit, I need to actually attach myself to this to have some sort of meaning or value or safety or freedom or whatever you want to call it. Because by reestablishing that as a value, it's gonna I hate the word empower, but it's really going to reinvigorate everyone's character and their sense of accomplishment and get us to a place where we really can be self-sufficient, but also collectively efficient.
Positive gains and self-sufficiency is always going to be good for positive gains and collective. I mean, because just those benefits spread out naturally. That's why what Steven Pinker's talking about with being in the best place we've ever been in objectively. You know, there's something that for the last couple of minutes I've been moving around in my head, because Brent, so originally you were talking about the epigenetics and sort of the manifestation of different, you know, one path or the other. So is it the lone wolf or the have a bunch of children? But there's another one where people are more individually driven or more likely to seek comfort and nurturing or whatever it may be with more human beings. And what I think you see is we've created an attention economy, because the number of people that are putting everything they have into social media, it's like watching a gambling addict. Like, you should be out doing something for your life. You're on social media saying, I need help, like use my Cash App or I'm not going to be able to pay rent tomorrow. And it's like, have you looked for a job? And like, not to judge anyone's individual situation, but was it Chris Rock that did the joke when people were like, what the hell is cyberbullying? Like, you know, you can just turn it off.
Yeah.
It's not that simple. Sometimes people actually are running businesses and working hard online, and there can be other elements that come into it. But broadly speaking, like, people will like a moth to a flame, like for negative attention online instead of going to do this thing that's better for them. And I wonder if there's an element of like, I'm online more than I should be, but if it went down tomorrow, if there's no social media tomorrow, I'd wake up and say, it's probably better for me, and like life would go on. And there's some people where it would ruin their day at the very least.
Especially these young kids that grew up with it. Like those people would be really screwed. Actually, they'd probably be way better off, but like that would be a painful transition, man. But hey, I want to circle back to something you said real quick, Rob, which I think this is interesting. It's like an interesting take on libertarianism. Tell me what you think about this. I think libertarians generally had kind of like fucked up childhoods. And I think that the oftentimes there's people that maybe had a better experience growing up are less skeptical of the group, the society in general. They like to be part of the tribe. Tell me what you think about that.
I think that is without question one massive driving force for people embracing libertarianism. I learned very early, like, don't trust the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, to be fair, sometimes they come through. Some institutions, often they come through, but you have, again, abdicated all that responsibility. You are now putting faith in them. And if they do not come through, you have no other recourse except to complain to the institution. And that's where we get the thing like, well, surprise, surprise, they policed themselves and they found they'd done nothing wrong. Like that's very real.
Yeah. So no, I mean, like, I think the mental model of some people takes their, like, say their family, for example. Let's say they've got a fairly healthy family and they look at them like they're my tribe, they're my people, they got my back when things are, when we're up against the wall. And I think that their mental model is to extrapolate that towards the government. Like, oh, government's just my family. It's just, we're all in this together, 330 million people. We're all just one big happy family. And the government's just there to be my uncle, my father, my mom, my aunts. Like they're here to take care of me. I think that mental model is a real, like that sort of extrapolation. That thing happens at that scale. And that's a real problem. I think it's just people, they view government as this benevolent force. They're just, oh, we're just a big family. We're in this together. The sort of ability to look at the communal and be like, yeah, I want to be part of that, versus the individualistic people who might have been fucked by their family or society in general and just been like, screw it, man. Like, I would rather go it alone and not rely on being part of the Borg. I think there's probably something to it. I've talked to enough libertarians to know, like, most of us have come from some pretty messed up situations.
I think there's something to that. It's almost like every damaged person's not a comedian, but every comedian's a damaged person.
Yeah, right.
I mean, anecdotally, I had the childhood you talk about, though, like with the family had my back and all those things. And I feel like as far back as I can remember, I've always had this eye on the proverbial world. Like, I just don't trust it. I don't. And for me, that's been my motivation to libertarianism, was like, I just have this built-in intrinsic distrust of the collective. I just, and the collective as far as the state, not the collective as, equality, whatever, or the co-op. But like, for me, it's always just been a built-in skepticism that I can't shake. That's what drove me to it. So I do think there's something to it. For me, I don't think that's the case, but for overwhelmingly, I do think that is a factor.
I have a wildly different take, and I have thought about this before. I actually think libertarians are people who have a higher natural degree of faith in a collective. But the important difference is they see how much it matters that they choose the collectives where they put their faith. And so a lot of people have had some fucked up childhoods, whether it's from their family or external factors affecting them, and they learn to put their faith perhaps in their family or their group of friends or the people they choose to be around. The people that never develop faith in, and using faith, just, I shouldn't use that word. Give it our
colloquially, I'll accept it.
Okay, you know what I mean. But haven't developed faith in any institution of any sort. I think they tend to be antisocial. Like that creates a criminal personality, because then you can never settle on anything. You can never have a core identity. It's always you versus the world in every context. But like, I love our Liberty family. They piss me off all the time. I love my family. I love the team I coach in wrestling. Like, there are collectives where I very much put my faith and trust. And if they hurt me, that's okay. It's worth it. It's the one that is forced to be on you that we very quickly learn to develop the skepticism for. And I think part of that is, and like, look where it manifests. So like you talk about often, you were in your childhood, they demanded you have faith and like observe religious specifications, like in every single way. And now your skepticism is huge on religion, but religion in most cases is very much a state. It's a form of a state. It's this monopoly on violence over your morals, and often even manipulating government to allow actual physical violence to be not only justified but encouraged if people stray outside the lines. No different than any other form of the state.
It might even be worse. And this is where I've been a little bit harsh on religion, is that especially ones that are very dogmatic and punitive, right? Like Catholic, I grew up, and it was you're going to burn in hell for, like, you can hold that sort of existential threat. It doesn't seem to me to be very voluntary at that point. If you're saying that the creator of the universe is going to literally torture you forever and you can never escape from it based off of committing the tiniest quote unquote sin, that's a pretty messed up thing to do to somebody. That seems like, akin to psychological abuse, and maybe even in some ways worse than a state. But to go on the negative side, I know you're like, and I agree with you, lots of positives to religion, lots of negatives. On the negative side, that seems pretty diabolical, man, that whole paradigm, because I know I suffered from that growing up. That was a very psychologically damaging situation. I think a lot of people that get into that new atheism, the Reddit atheist type of thing, they sort of are reactive to some sort of religious trauma that stems from that type of threat.
So I have had a friend. Well, I mean, we're still friends. I haven't talked to him much recently, but he's a priest. And he struggled a lot with his faith and with being a priest. And the thing that bugged him the most is he said he would take confessions and people would confess sins that he also knew were his sins. And it would infuriate him. And I think you make an interesting point. I came up Catholic. I probably still am Catholic. I can either say I'm Catholic or I can say I'm not Catholic, and I feel like a bigger hypocrite saying I'm not Catholic.
You're a Schrodinger's Catholic. You're Schrodinger's Catholic.
Exactly. That's I like that. I'm going to say that from now on. But it took a long time to shed the guilt aspect of it. Like, I'm going to get punished for doing something wrong, and to say, I'm going to do the things I think are right, because I want to do the things that I think are right. Like, I'm not worried about the repercussions, but like, I want to be a decent person. I think life's more interesting if you're a decent person.
I agree. I think life is more interesting if you're a decent person. I think that's a good place to start to wrap this up. I will say that I think we need to leave a little meat on the bone, because this has been a hell of a conversation. I want to do this again and continue this.
Oh, yeah.
To take a hard right and a clunky segue here, getting into Christmas coming up a couple days. Do you guys, I assume, do you guys celebrate Christmas with your families?
I do.
Do you have any cool, unique traditions that you guys do you want to talk about? And then each one of you plug your stuff. Obviously, I plugged your stuff earlier, Brent, but do it again and tell everybody kind of what you're up to going into the new year.
Yeah, sure. So I don't really have a lot of traditions. We do the basic stuff, put out stockings and open presents, and it was a very traditional Christmas. So there's nothing too interesting about that. I will say I am happy the family's getting together this year. I moved from, I think like we were neighbors. You didn't even know it, Jake. I was living up in Buckley, Washington. And moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I got my brother-in-law a job with me working in tech, and he moved over from Goldman Sachs, the devil of all devils. But he's working here in Nashville with me, and so our in-laws come in and come to town and get everyone together. It's pretty nice, because before we were all separated. They were in Utah and we were up in Washington. We didn't get together much, so we do have a lot more in-person time, which I really appreciate. Really good getting everyone together. So we'll be doing that. With respect to plugging my stuff, it's just Aiming Up Podcast. It's at Aiming Up Podcast on all the platforms. And also Anarcho Syndicate Clothing Company. Really excited. Just launched that last month. Anarcho SCC on Twitter. and anarchosyndicate.com. Go pick up some merch. I think it's pretty cool. It's a unique Liberty-based clothing line, and I think it's very unique in the space. It's got a lot of it's meant to be more like a fashion line, not just making political statements, which I think is cool. So I just make shit that I like and hope somebody buys it.
I will say, and as a happy customer, there are so many politically driven articles of clothing or things to buy that are just ridiculous. And yours is awesome because it looks like a fashion line first. Yes, there's some other stuff to it, but it genuinely it punches at its weight with some of the other stuff in its class, and it's exceptional. The quality is really good. I know it sounds like you paid me for this, but the quality is really good. The designs are awesome, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you got coming, next round or next batch of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Next collab is going to be with ANCAP Air, our good friend Derek Wills. So I'm going to be doing some stuff with him, and I got some more in the pipeline. So that's the other part I should mention to it is that I think that there's too much infighting in the Liberty community. And so I'm hoping to take some people in some very diverse corners of the Liberty movement that maybe are at odds with each other and bring them together. That's what Syndicate is about. We're all in this shit together. If you're Liberty minded at all and you're trying to move towards that direction, I'm cool with you. You cool with me. Maybe we can do some joint financial interests together and break down some barriers and get people on the same team. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about this.
That design that you did of Butler, Pennsylvania was pretty fucking awesome.
That's not live yet. I still need to refine that one.
I know, but I was just like, oh, damn. All right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Director's cut.
No, Jake, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a long week. I appreciate you just coming and let me ramble. Brent and I will do this a lot. We'll do it in chat on Twitter, and then we'll be like, stop. We need to go talk about this.
Yep.
You're always welcome to cash it out here. I genuinely enjoyed this a lot tonight. So anytime you want to do it, let's do it here.
Thank you very much. And I second, if you're not following Brent, follow Brent. Check out Anarchist Syndicate. The clothing is awesome. We haven't discussed the details, but he's going to be the clothing person for the North Carolina State Convention.
Let's go.
Because it's amazing stuff. And I always love our conversations. As far as Christmas goes, it's like one of my 3 favorite days of the year. I love Christmas, I love Halloween, and I love the 4th of July. I'll be honest, like it's just a midsummer day where you're off.
Those are my 3. Yeah, those are my hot dogs. 3.
But I love Christmas. I love everything about it. I love Christmas music. I love Christmas movies. I love the idea of like giving. You were talking about slug earlier when you came on. I love giving, but I'm bad at receiving. The truth is I prefer to be the one bleeding. I'm a paranoid that says I love everything about it. That line sticks with me, and I think about it all the time. My favorite tradition, though, is we wake up. The kids will see what Santa brought. We open presents, and then we watch Die Hard. And I don't know how I managed to get this to be a tradition, but I just did it for early years of the marriage. And now my wife, I'm like, it's our tradition. And she's like, I don't have a comeback, so I guess we're watching Die Hard.
I literally just watched Die Hard on the plane back from Rome, so I'm already done, man.
You're in the Christmas season, in the Christmas spirit.
A Christmas movie, fuck you.
Lethal Weapon's a Christmas movie too. My wife does this thing. My wife is obsessed with Halloween, like to an unhealthy level, but she does this thing called 31 Days of Fright. So every October, it's almost like an advent calendar of fucked up movies. Every night in the month of October, we watch a different horror movie.
I'm going to send you my tweet. I listed my entire 31 Days of Horror out.
Okay. Well, we'll see what
I'm with
we'll
you.
see.
I empathize with your wife strongly.
I love Halloween, and what I was going to say is she's gotten me into that quite a bit. So now I kind of look forward to it. I'm not a fan of like the found footage stuff. I like more of the slasher things. But anyway, Christmas has kind of turned into that for us, where almost every night of the month we're watching a different Christmas. But obviously, Christmas Vacation's at the top of the list. Die Hard, we watched. But what we do now, and part of this has been a function of me having split custody with my daughter, is the years that I have her, alternating years. When we have everybody together, we always, it's corny because it's Nick Cage, but we watch that movie, The Family Man, on Christmas Eve. And it's a really cool kind of like what could have been, it's a good family movie. It's Christmas based. And then we always go out to like a Christmas Eve buffet or Christmas Eve dinner. And then we cook at home and have a big thing. We're throwing a big party this year on Christmas at our new house for like 16 people. So I got to cook prime rib and a bunch of shit. So I'll be busy on Christmas, but yeah, that's what we do. But it's send me your list, Rob, because I'm curious to see. I want to see what your list of
definitely will as soon as we get off.
But aside from that, anything else you guys want to plug?
At Prosper Charlotte, PROSPERCLT 2023 on Twitter, and that's the social. I try to only be active on one. I'll check the others, but yeah, and I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm running for LNC chair, so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't step on that. Well, thank you guys. It's been fun. Much respect. Hope you have a wonderful holiday with the families, and anytime you want to come back.
Thank you.
All
Very
right.
much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too, man. Love it. It's always great talking to both y'all. Love you guys.
All right. See you later.
Subscribe to If by Whiskey. Fuck Liberty
Oh, thank
Lockdown.
you.
Subscribe to this show.
No comment.